What's good, my people? Welcome into Buckets, Action Network's daily NBA betting podcast. We're in the workshop. This is for the Thursday NBA playoff slate. For a second, we were chatting, thought we might not have any games, but we were fortunate enough to have two to break down. I got a couple of my favorite guys with me. BA, Brandon Anderson, my first pod with BA all year. It is an absolute pleasure. And of course, AOW, Andrew O'Connor Watts is with me. We are presented by BetMGM, the king of sportsbooks. Go download the Action Network app. Also, big announcement. We are spinning off this Buckets pod to include a WNBA Buckets pod. It's going to have a standalone link pod that you can subscribe to. Go check out Maria. Marina was going to be leading the way there, hosting it. The first episode is going to be this Friday, May 3rd, and then Tuesday, May 7th. Go check that out, man. It's an untapped market for the most part. There's going to be a lot of angles there. Jim Turvey and the crew are going to be on there breaking down a lot of spots that they like on a weekly basis. Go subscribe to that podcast ASAP. The WNBA season is right around the corner. All right, you know the deal. We give the play, we give the cap. We'll try to get you guys out of here a little quicker. We got a lot to talk about. All right, BA, I'm coming to you. Give me your best bet for the Thursday two-game NBA playoff slate.
All right, I'm getting into the weeds. You know I love to live in the weeds. So for Knicks Sixers, give me the New York Knicks second quarter money line plus 110. And then my version of an escalator off of that. Give me the double Sixers first quarter, Knicks money line. So Sixers to get the lead after one, Knicks to win the game. That is priced together at plus 460. That's for that game. And then over in the Pacers Bucks game, just give me Siakam, PRA, points, rebounds, assists under 35.5. And then stage of elimination, Indiana Pacers, give me the second round, win the series, and get out of my life, minus 150.
Perfect start to the Buckets pod from Brandon Anderson there. All right, AOW, give me your best bets for the Thursday playoff NBA slate.
All right, I'm sticking to one game, Philly versus New York. I got the under 200.5 and the Knicks plus 3.5.
I'm going to go against my guy, AOW, here. In a one angle, I would say I'm going to go Sixers team total over 101.5 minus 110 at BetMGM. All right, boys. I'm going to come back to you, AOW, because then we'll get in the weeds with BA and we'll then talk about the second game. But let's start in Philadelphia. Knicks, Sixers, game 6. I was in the building for game 5, an absolute classic. I was on that side of the floor when Maxey pulled up from half. It was just an unbelievable game overall. But talk to me about the under 200.5 angle, and then while you're looking at the Knicks here, because the talk is going to be, how does their team pick themselves up off the ground when they essentially mentally had eliminated these boys? Never were going to see them again for the rest of the season. The series was done, dusted. The crowd had dusted them off. They were waving at him. Everything was over. It was done. It's a big difference when we're talking about coming off the game 2 situation, right? Where the series wasn't over. That game was over. That's a really bad way to lose a game. But we at least know for a fact we have 2 more games coming up here. The Knicks are going to have to pick themselves up off of essentially eliminating an opponent, and now they have to go to their building and play them Thursday night. Talk to me about under 2.5, and then we'll get into Knicks plus 3.5, or break it down however you want.
Yeah, no, I'll start with the under, but I as much as I love talking Knicks with you, Sean, I was kind of hoping we wouldn't have to talk about this game. As a Knicks fan, that was a pretty devastating loss. But I think if we look at that game, starting with the under, this is more of a pace play than it is a defensive play. Both defenses are just 11th and 12th of all playoff teams in defensive rating, but they're second in pace as a series behind Celtics and Heat. There's not a lot of transition buckets going on. I mean, that OG pick 6 at the end of this of game 5 was kind of an outlier. I mean, it kind of sticks in our brain, right, as like a huge play, but that hasn't been happening a ton. Both teams are just the 10th and 11th in opponent turnover percentage for these playoffs. Because these offenses just like to get established. They like to sit there, run their sets. The Knicks were the slowest. Sorry, they have the longest offensive possession length of any team in the league for the regular season. That's over at dunks and threes. That's a cool stat that kind of helps you kind of determine, not just the fast break opportunities, but like who is actually like taking their time within these sets. Like, so that's a big part of it. Just the play style. I mean, even this game that went over, this game 5 was 97-97 going into overtime, right? I mean, it was trending under this number before it went into overtime. If we didn't see overtime, wouldn't have gone under. Anyone with an over ticket is just, lucked out with that one. But finally, for the under side of this, let's look at this spot, just kind of bigger picture historically. So unders in these 2024 playoffs are 24 and 15, 62%. That's never a great reason to just take an under, but we are seeing a lot of unders this playoff so far. If we look at specifically game 6 and 7, the under is 130 and 88 for 15.9% ROI going back to 2005. Now that's, when we have a lot of elimination games in game 6, obviously game 7 is an elimination game. Defense intensifies. I think that's a big reason you see unders in these spots. And then finally, if we just look at game 6, unders are 92 and 66. So a little bit less than the game 6 and game 7, but that's still 58% for a 13.1% ROI. So I like it to go under 200. I don't think we see both of these teams scoring over 100. And I think to lead into the Knicks, I know I'm going long here, but to lead into this Knicks part of it, I think that bodes well for the Knicks. An under game bodes well for the Knicks. Now, if Embiid's getting the friendly whistle like we saw in game 3, game 4, can't remember, but
game 3,
yeah. So
the
if he's getting
burger.
that, exactly. If he's getting that friendly whistle like he did then, this is toast. And the Knicks are toast, honestly. Like there's no real way out of it. If this is a Scott Foster game, I might be a little bit more nervous about this ticket, but I just think, in this game, in that last game specifically, the Knicks had this game wrapped up. I mean, there was some pretty huge mental mistakes that kind of led to this loss. I mean, I think play this game 20 times, the Knicks win like 18, 20, 19 of these times. Like this is just like a crazy, I mean, Maxey went insane. The fact that he had the 4-point play in the Garden with Larry Johnson there is just yeah, exactly. Brandon's doing the
LJ.
The LJ, exactly. That's just a crime. It's a crime. It broke my heart a little bit. I'm not going to lie.
Yeah.
But, one last thing about it, and then I'll want to hear what you guys think. But the Knicks have dominated the glass, all season. Offensively, specifically, the offensive glass has been kind of their bread and butter. They had just 6 of their 46 misses, which 13%. The rest of this series, they have been 32% or better in every single game. So I think this was kind of an outlier, bad offensive rebounding game for the Knicks. I think that they bounce back. You mentioned how you come back from such a devastating loss. This is the Knicks team that can bounce back from a loss like that. They are just gritty, tough, all the cliche words you want to throw at a Tibbs team like that. So I like them to cover the 3.5, and I like the game to go under.
BA, Andrew, lays out some good info and some trends, and specifically that matchup with this series and the way it's been rolling out. Essentially, slow pace, low scoring, grinded out game, slugfest. I'm going to take the 3.5 when it's going to come to that type of game and that type of game flow, I should say. Brandon, what do you think about the cap, the plays, and then I got some thoughts, and I'll jump into my team
Yeah.
total since I'm correlated there.
Yeah, I was looking actually at the under here also, and I already gave out 16 bets in my best bets anyway, so I decided to leave this one out of here. I don't do a ton of totals, but 194 going into overtime last game obviously ended at 218, 189 the previous game, and I think too just the setup here. I looked a lot at what was the schedule for the series going in. Embiid is the guy you're watching for, obviously, because we know that Embiid's conditioning is not quite there right now, coming off the injury, and he's still playing through the injury. It just is reality. That's not a slander. This is a thing we have to pay attention to. And game 1, game 3, game 4, we got 2 days of Embiid rest before the game. We're done. We got no more 2 days off anymore, which I think for you Knicks fans, you got to feel good about that. That, like, we even saw already that Embiid's conditioning came up a little earlier in the game, and it's going to keep doing that here. Here's the minutes that we just got off an overtime game in game 5. Josh Hart, our man, played 53, of course, because who's taking Josh Hart off the court? Like, he's playing them all. 53 is the limit, just so you know. Jalen Brunson, 51. OG Anunoby, 50. Tyrese Maxey, 52. So he got off for a breather. Joel Embiid played 48. That's a full game, just sat out the overtime period worth. And Tobias Harris, if we're counting him in this list, 49 minutes. These guys played an entire game, and not just like Pacers and Sixers sort of game. This is a man's game, right? This is like grinded out, grimy, physical, attack the glass. So to me, combine that with the game 6, game 7, the elimination spot, the short rest, it just feels slow. It feels like buckets are going to be a chore in this one, at least at times. And we've seen that at different times in the series anyway. I did want to ask a question about the offensive rebounding thing, because I think that plays in a little bit here. So near the end of the game, I think maybe like last 5 minutes or so, and then I believe maybe the whole overtime, the Sixers sort of, to me, stumbled into a bigger lineup that I thought worked really well and helped them get over the line here. They played Maxey, Batum, Oubre, Toby, and then Embiid. And that bigger lineup, I thought, made scoring a little bit harder on New York. They won the glass 10-4 in that stretch, last 5 minutes in overtime. Like you said, Andrew, the offensive rebounds notably weren't there for New York. That's where a lot of the Knicks offense has come from. I'm on the Knicks side on this one, but to me, that was one thing that gave me a little bit of pause of like, okay, can Philly sort of get back the size advantage and the physicality advantage here? And is that enough of something to affect my cap? And does that play into the total? So Sean, I'm curious what you think. You were there and you're on a total on this one.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's a really good observation, because if you go back to game 1 and game 2 when Jalen Brunson was struggling, the only 3 people he saw on defense were Kelly Oubre, Nicholas Batum, and Tobias Harris. They're all big, longer dudes, and they're a lot more physical than he's seen throughout the entire year. So anytime he saw Maxey or anybody else campaign, he was going at them and he was going to score. Now, if they're going to run those guys continuously, and Batum's going to see a lot of Jalen Brunson, it's been an issue. If you go to the end of regulation, Brunson waves off Tibbs, no timeout. Batum says, no problem. I'll go one-on-one, and I'll take care of business. He got a clean block, no foul. It was a great defensive play. Batum has been sensational on defense, and when those 3 guys have seen a lot of Jalen Brunson possession after possession, that's the only time I've seen Jalen kind of worn down and not be able to score. And it's when he's seen those 3 guys, and that's exactly how it closed out in overtime in that game 5. Now, really quick on the offensive rebounding. Coming into the game, Knicks were averaging 8.3 offensive boards in the second half to the Sixers 3 even. Last night, Knicks had 5 in the second half, Sixers had 4. In the fourth quarter, it was 2-2. Teams that have won the glass in this series are 5-0. It's massively important to rebound in this series. If you rebound, you win this. You've been winning these games. And when we're talking about offensive opportunities, the Knicks have been thriving on that all year. If they're not going to win the offensive rebounding battle, or it's going to be extremely close or even, they're going to have a hard time winning games. That's the the differentiator in this series than it has been for the Knicks all season long. All right, I'm gonna go into my my Philadelphia team total here. This is I understand I'm going against the grain here a little bit because I do agree with a lot of what you said, AOW, and I agree a lot with what you said, Brandon, just overall, where that it feels slow. It feels like it's going to be a grinded out spot. But I really truly feel like I just watched that in game 5 and Philly scored 97 points. Like it was the slugfest of all slugfest, and Philly still put up 97 before they got into overtime. So in this game 6 matchup, going back home, I think the Philadelphia 76ers are going to be as loose as they possibly could be. They're coming off a miracle W. They're going back home where they just dealt with that bullshit with the Knicks fans going over there and doing all that nonsense. I'm assuming Philly fans are going to show up in a lot better numbers and be able to hold down that home court advantage a lot better than they did. But I see the New York Knicks or the Sixers coming in there, coming home, feeling extremely good and a lot looser than they would be, obviously, if they lost the game. But this is just a real spot that they would be extremely loose. And I think the Knicks are going to be tight in this matchup. I think the pressure is extremely on these boys to show up. Also, I think it's being understated how much pressure Jalen Brunson is under on a night-to-night basis on offense. Like, he knows he has to score damn near 40 for them to be in the game every single night. If he's scoring 30, 32, they have been having trouble winning games. Like, the amount of pressure on this guy, Jalen Brunson, on a night-to-night is significant. And like I laid out with that defensive matchup, similar to what BA said, I think those longer, bigger guys have been giving him trouble. We saw that in game 1 and in game 2. Now, the Embiid question is very key. The 2 days rest, like the game 3 setup was perfect. We all like between Embiid getting 2 days rest, we know a favorable whistle was coming off the game 2 debacle. Like that was always going to be a spot that Embiid was going to have a massive game and he was going to get to the line. Now that we are on these 1 day rest game, 1 day off between, that does affect Embiid. But I know we played 48 last night, BA, but the fucking pressure and onus was on Maxey. That's who was giving up all the effort. Like Embiid offensively was deferring quite a bit. Now, one thing I did think was very interesting was right after the game, I wanted to see what Embiid's point prop would post at. Like he was just deferring. He looked tired. He looks beat up. Like we know that, right? So yesterday, right after the game, first number I saw was 28.5. This morning, as we record this afternoon on Wednesday, so Tuesday night, I looked at the point prop. It was 28.5. Wednesday morning, it was 30.5. So it went up a full bucket on Embiid, which I thought was very interesting. So a guy that deferred to Maxey, looks like they essentially ran every single possession through Maxey from like the middle of the third quarter through overtime. Embiid seemed to be okay with it. Maxey was rolling fine. My initial thought was I should be looking at Embiid unders here for points.
Yeah.
To see it go from 28.5 to 30.5, I thought was very interesting and kind of going against my thoughts in the market. I believe overall the offense is going to be a lot more balanced between Embiid and Maxey going home here in this game 6. And also the Sixers are starting to get production from role players. Campaigns hit a couple shots. Tobias Harris, maybe his best game in a long time. He had 19 on 7 and 11. And in a career filled with stealing money, he earned quite a bit of it yesterday, right? So I have to give Tobias Harris his props there. They're starting to show up. As I mentioned, Batum has been awesome. Also, Maxey and Embiid combined missed 5 free throws. I don't expect that. Those guys are really good free throw shooters. I think overall, Sixers are going to come in loose, more balanced on offense, continue to get a little production from their role players. I think 101.5 on the team total side is just too low for this Sixers team. Look, I'm under, how about this? I'm under guidelines that you're not going to catch me picking against the Knicks too many spots. All right. But I think this is going to be a very difficult game for them to show up and win. I expect the series to go 7. and I like the Sixers to come out loose and go over that 101.5 on the team total side. ALW, let me get your thoughts since we're kind of going head to head here in this spot. What do you think about the 101.5 over on the team total? Obviously, you don't love it, but what do you think about how I broke it down?
No, I think it's a good breakdown. I mean, I love that Tobias took off the invisibility cloak for that game. We were talking about that last episode. Yeah, no, I think of the two picks, I did want to clarify this anyways. I think the under for me, the game under is the stronger play. I have that one unit. The Knicks plus 3.5 is a half a unit, and I think that kind of fits with your like they can go under the game total and the Sixers can go over their team total if the Knicks just don't have it going, kind of like what you're talking about. I mean, I think you made a great point about Brunson and the pressure that he's under. They are so reliant on him offensively that when they're not just getting every single offensive rebound, there's just not a lot of offensive production to come from for the Knicks. Like Dante DiVincenzo just has not really had it going the way that we've seen him be able to be that kind of like release valve offensive player for the Knicks.
Yeah, no, let's be clear. Let's be clear there, LW. He's been the second guy on offense since Randall's gone down. Pure point blank. Like he's been the second guy. And he's essentially taking a backseat to Deuce McBride. Deuce McBride's been playing very well, but those guys have kind of been cannibalizing each other on minutes. Whoever's playing better is going to close out and get those minutes. Dante picked up a couple quick fouls. He wasn't shooting it very well. All he saw was Pine, and Deuce McBride got those minutes. So, yeah, I mean, offensively, they're going to need some help from Josh Hart and OG, who's been actually looking for his shot a lot more than he has been prior and has been rebounding a lot better. OG Anunoby has been a lot more active just in totality on the offensive and glass. So I'm looking forward to that. But yeah, I could see this cashing the team total on the Sixers and still going under in the game.
Yeah.
I do want to. Yeah, go ahead, ALW.
I think that's way more likely than you cashing your team total and the Knicks cashing plus 3.5 or the money line. Like, I think them going like Sixers going over their team total and the game going under a lot more likely than, Knicks covering and Sixers going over their team total. So, yeah.
Yeah, BA, any last thoughts? And then we'll roll into Pacers Bucks.
Yeah. Well, I got two thoughts. First, I didn't give my cap for my quarter bets here, so I got to get to that. But I got a question for y'all because I'm listening and I'm a neutral on this series, and I am on a podcast with two extremely non-neutrals on this series. So I think genuinely that both of y'all are betting a little bit with a hedging your heart, trying to protect yourself a little bit and some Knicks fandom. So here's what I want to know. Right now, not just for Game 6, for the series. This is a fan question. This is not a betting question. As a Knicks fan, scale of 1 to 10. 10, terrified out of my mind. 1, doesn't matter. We got this. 1 to 10, how scared are you that the series is in big trouble?
I'm not worried about the series at all. Overall, I think the Knicks end up winning the series if it is this game or the next. And really quick on the fandom thing, I'm actually a big proponent of listening to people that are extremely tapped in on squads. Like, you should probably listen to me and AOW when it comes to talking about the Knicks. And I essentially just told you I think the Knicks are going to lose. So that's another discussion. But like, I'm if you could remove your heart and consistently look at it as neutral as you can when we're talking about betting actual American dollars, that's the team the best and how they would respond in certain situations and matchups and that type of thing. So I'm always on the side of listening to the guys that are actually talking about the teams that they're closest to. You probably shouldn't listen to me too much when I'm trying to talk about the Dallas Stars or or that type of stuff, right? So, but yes, I get what you're saying, BA, and I understand that. But overall, I'm not. I think the Knicks still win the series. I think 2 in a row is going to be too tall of a task for Joel coming off one night's rest, essentially. So yeah, I'm not worried about that overall. But my eyes, my brain, and my heart are telling me that this is going to go 7 and it'll be
Okay.
back at the Garden on Saturday.
Yeah, well, I asked that because shouts to my day one group chat, Rob. He literally signed up for a sports book for the first time ever 2 days ago. He's a diehard Sixers fan. He literally signed up for a betting account to fade his Sixers, to bet against them 3 times if necessary out of the playoffs. And he's gonna listen to this podcast, and I'm hearing from both sides. Like I'm hearing your voice, Sean. I'm hearing your expertise on the Knickerbockers, but I'm hearing Sixers expertise also on like we're frauds, we're out of here, this is it. And so I'm hearing the voices. I got the both shoulders. I got voice on both shoulders here. So that's all I'm saying here. Let me get to my cap, because my cap is my main play here is Knicks second quarter, and it's the money line plus 110. Here's the reason for that. I don't know who's going to win this game. I don't know who's going to win the series. I think Philly is live. I would not bet it for the series. I think the Knicks are still a clear favorite. I think the conditioning thing and the rest thing, Embiid's health. I think you Knicks fans here on this Zoom and those listening, I think you should still feel good. I personally, as a neutral, I'm going to defer to you on this, Sean. I think that the Knicks, look, I've watched Jalen Brunson. I've watched these Nova dudes play a lot of big games in their career. They ain't going to be scared off because they like missed a couple of shots and some crazy 7-point spurt hit them. They're going to come out, if anything, to me, I think they come out pissed. They're just going to come out and be like, no, man, we're not going out that way. That's not how this is going to go. So to me, I see that both ways. I can see both ways. And look, these are NBA teams. Like, they don't need motivation. They've been playing all year to get to this spot. They want to win. The one thing I feel most certain about in this game, the only thing I feel certain about, is that there's going to be a few minutes, some precious minutes in this game when our guy Joel Embiid has to sit down. He's not playing all 48. And when that happens, it's going to be a disaster for Philadelphia, right? I don't even need to explain that part of it. We know. Here's the number so far for the series. Joel Embiid on the court, 209 minutes. The Sixers are plus 48. Joel Embiid off the court, 36 minutes. The Sixers are minus 46. It is a 2-point spread for the series, and it's plus 48 with Embiid on, minus 46 with him off. It's plus almost a quarter of a point every time Embiid's on the court. The Sixers are better by a quarter of a point per minute. Every time he's off, 1.27 points worse per minute. So what is the only portion of the game that I'm almost certain I can count on Joel Embiid not being out there for a chunk? It's the second quarter. I don't know exactly. The rest patterns haven't been quite. Embiid doesn't always play the entire first quarter, but generally, our man. Look, I love me some Paul Reed, but Paul Reed is not Joel Embiid. That's all. That's all I'm saying. And it's not going well when he's out there this series. Here's the second quarter, because Paul Reed is starting the second quarter and playing like 3 to 5 minutes, which doesn't seem like much, but minus 1.27 per minute. You play that for 4 minutes, you just lost 5 points. I'm getting 5 free points on my bet because it's not Joel Embiid out there. Second quarter of the series, the Knicks are 5-0. They're plus 21 game 1, plus 3, plus 1, plus 8, plus 15. They have won the second quarter every single time. Now look, they have needed to win the second quarter because they have lost the first quarter 4 of the 5 times so far. They won game 3. They led by 2 at the end of the first quarter. Every other game, they trailed by 9, 7, 10, 9. So the Sixers starters, the Joel Embiids, are getting the lead. We know this is what's happening. But then the Knicks come back, and the bench and that spot, they tap into it, and the Knicks are coming through. So here's the cap. I like Knicks second quarter money line plus 110. That's the standalone. That's the main bet. But then my version of the escalator here is, okay, let me just spell out that game script. And the best way I could find to do that, and you could just wait and bet it live. You could bet like Philly first quarter. You could bet Knicks second quarter. You keep coming back. But I'm just going to give it to you up front. At some books, you can do a first quarter parlay with the full game money line. So Sixers to win the first quarter, Knicks to win the game, plus 460. That's the script that I've just laid out. It is the script we've watched in this series. The starters do well. The Sixers come out Game 6 home crowd. The thing you're talking about, Sean, I think I'm giving that credit here. Sixers play loose. They get the lead. Maxey's getting to the basket. Embiid is at the best he is all game. They get the lead. They win the first quarter. And then our man has to sit for a couple minutes because he's not playing all 48. He might play the second half. I don't know if he's going to sit the second half. There's no way they're playing him 48 straight through the first half. They're just not doing it. So get him out of here for a few minutes. Give me my edge. Let me isolate. I frankly cannot believe that if you look at just each quarter, you can bet first, second, third, fourth quarter, they're basically just pricing them all the same. And I think that just is an oversight. I think it's an oversight based on what we are seeing in the series and based on the Paul Reed minutes. So to me, that's the play is Knicks second quarter and then kind of pushing the escalator from there. And just a few trends that help out here and a few trends to help our Knicks listeners out. Game 6, the road team that's up 3-2. So that is the Knicks here. Since 2005, that team is 60-30 against the spread, 67% cover rate by 5 points a game. And that's ATS. They're 59-31 straight up. So road team game 6 leading the series to close out 59-31, 39% ROI. This is a spot that we are told historically to bet on the team that can close out the series. Game 6 up 3-2 off a loss, 68% against the spread. That's better on the road. It's better on short spreads. There's a lot of trends. And look, I know the trends don't know that the Knicks just had this epic heartbreak moment collapse, and maybe that just throws the trends out. But I see a lot of reasons to like the Knicks here. So I will take them second quarter, and then I'll take that first quarter Sixers Knicks money line plus 460.
Really quick, before I kick it to you, ALW, I want to talk about betting and knowing rotations. There is something to be said and money to be made if you could get in the habit of roughly knowing when the superstars are on and off the floor. If you know Jokic, who almost always plays the first 12 minutes typically, is going to be off the floor in the second quarter, that could affect your handicap and how you see the game flow going. If you could add that to the repertoire, knowing rotations, knowing when the big dogs are on and off the floor, it's extremely helpful. Also, if there's a spot live in the first quarter where, say, you like Philly, maybe you shouldn't live bet Philly until Joel Embiid is probably going to come back on the floor. Don't live bet Philly when Joel's about to go off. You're going to get the worst. You're going to get the worst of it, right? So something to keep in mind when you're talking about live betting and just knowing rotations and knowing when guys are going to be on and off the floor. It'll help you get the best price on whatever side you're trying to pick. ALW, what do you think about the snipe of the second quarter from BA?
Yeah, I love it. I mean, mine was just kind of like Knicks, good win, and Brandon's like in the second quarter, Joel Embiid leaves, and that's what it's like. All right, well that's great. I love it. I mean, plus 460, that is real nice. When you first threw it out there, I was like, all right, come on, all right, parlay with the quarter, the non-correlate. All right, what's going on here? And then 460, that's a nice number. I think, yeah, I mean, and to your point, Sean, looking at those rotations can be really helpful. I think it's nice to do in the live market, like you said. I've been betting some live, doing some live betting in these playoffs, just kind of like stick to all right, what did I think going into this? Is this not what's happening? If there's some like variance in the first quarter, that live number can change, whether it's a total, whether it's a side, so I do generally think that like eyeing these rotations, be steadfast to your pre-game, cap, as long as it's not, as long as what you're seeing on the screen or in person isn't wildly different from what you thought going in. I think that those like eyeing those rotations and eyeing that kind of stuff live is really valuable. And in this case with Brandon, you're kind of just like preempting that live bet. So I like it.
Yeah, no doubt about it. And any angle, the more information, the better. So just pay attention to who's on and off the floor. All right, BA, let's talk about this Pacers Bucks series. Bobby Portis back on the floor, baby, impact player. As long as Bobby doesn't get ejected, you never know what could happen in this series. Shout out Bobby and the Bucks for a lot of people counting them out in this spot. They actually came in and got a massive W. But very interesting play here. Getting out in front, looking ahead a little bit. That's also important when we're talking about sports betting, man. You got to look, you got to have a little bit of a crystal ball in you and a little bit of a gamble to try to snipe the best price. Talk to me about the Pacers winning this Bucks series, but then getting eliminated in the second round, minus 150.
Yeah, so I've been big on Pacers the whole series. I played the Pacers escalator. I had all the way up to sweep. So we're giving games away now. We're giving possible winnings away. I still think Indiana does take care of the series. It doesn't look to me, reading the tea leaves, like we're going to get Giannis and Dame back. I thought going into game 5 that if that was a possibility, I thought the Sixers looked very live, that they could steal a home game just like they did. Kind of a letdown spot. Doc Rivers, not great with all the stars, really good with all the scraps. Like this is where Doc has made his living, but you do that for a game, you get it. But now I needed, for the Bucks side of things, they need Dame or Giannis to come back. Game 6, they need them now, because otherwise I just think Indiana probably close this out here. However, I didn't really like what I saw game 4, even when Indiana won the game, when they shot like 78% on threes or whatever. I didn't like the process. That was part of what made me a little bit worried about them. I don't want them shooting so many threes. I love that you're hitting them, but that's not Pacers ball. They led the league in twos this year. They led the league in 2-point percentage. Halliburton attacking, getting into the paint, setting up guys for easy stuff. Not Miles Turner bombing 10 times a game and happening to hit 7 of them. That's super great, but you can't do that every night. Like that's not who Miles Turner is going to be every game. So that made me nervous. And then we get to game 5. I'm done with the Pacers. Like that get this team. You can't do that. This is the first team in NBA history that we have tracking for that lost a playoff game, one game, to a team missing its top 2 scorers from the regular season. Nobody ever has done that before. This is a playoff game. This is a freebie. Close them out. Get some rest. You get to go home, get Halliburton some rest. My man can't move right now. He can't, like, his back is stiff. He can't run up and down the court. You see it on the court. They badly need their rest. You got the other guys going 12 rounds in the heavyweight prize fight, and you can go sit home and get some popcorn and watch them, and you just don't show in game 5 against a bunch of backups, against like dudes that were like, oh, Danilo Gallinari is still in the NBA. Oh, and he's playing? He's playing an elimination game like 23 minutes right now. So I think that the Pacers still close out the series. Books think that too. Books are very much pricing this as the Pacers are in the clear. Giannis ain't coming through that door. Dame ain't coming through that door. That the Pacers are big favorites here. They're minus 900 in the series still. So that's 90% to move on in the series. That said, after that, it's either the Knicks or it's the Sixers. I obviously think it's the Knicks. That's the first part of the podcast. I don't really care who it is. I think either one of those teams are going to punch the Pacers in the mouth. They're going to be physical. The way you beat Indiana is being a better version of what Milwaukee has been doing, which is you slow them down, you get them off kilter, you get them into the half court where they're not as good. And I think that's what Milwaukee has done a good job of. And Milwaukee hasn't really done this, but if you can dominate Indiana on the glass, they're really bad at rebounding. Well, guess who's coming to town? Philadelphia or New York. And they're going to pound Indiana on the glass. And that's going to mean extra possession. And Halliburton can't create advantages, can't move. I haven't done the work on the next series yet, because look, we could have 4 different series still, but minus 150 stage of elimination second round. Here's how the math works out. That's 60% implied. We're 90% implied for the Pacers to win the series. So I need to be at least 67% sure that the Pacers lose next round. I'm at least 67% sure. Here's how I see this. I see the Pacers winning one of these 2 games, and now I have a minus 150 series ticket on the Knicks Sixers winner. And I absolutely think I'm not getting that minus 150 once I wait for that series to open. So I'm going to scoop that up right now, because to me, the Pacers are going to get me some of my Pacers escalator money, but not enough. Gosh darn it. They're going to get me some. and then they're going to get the heck up out of here because I feel like game 5 was you're not made for this next level for the Indiana Pacers.
Yeah, I think that's very well said, BA. And that's, like I mentioned, you got to have a little bit of that crystal ball, the look ahead to try to get some of the best prices. And also, if shit does get really sticky, this would be an easy hedge in that next round if something starts to go really haywire with Indiana and Miles Turner turns into 25 a night and Siakam continues to just be able to stack it up. But I agree, especially on the glass, they're not going to be able to keep up. Any thoughts on that AOW, and then we'll get out of here?
I think it's a good cap. Yeah, I don't want to add too much. You broke it down great, so I'll just pass it off.
Let me jump with real quick props here. Pascal Siakam under 35.5 points, rebounds, assists. Last 3 games, points, rebounds, assists, 30, 29, 18. He's going down in that order. He only had 12 points, 4 rebounds, 2 assists in the last game. I don't get it. I don't really understand what's actually happening. He scored 36 and 37 the first 2 games, and then he just is not getting production. The shots are down. He was at 24 shots a game, down to 14 shots a game the last 3. I think part of that is the way Milwaukee has slowed the pace down. Siakam wants to be in transition. He wants to just get out in the open court and do stuff. So with less of that available to them, I think it's just less Siakam stuff that can happen. So under 35.5. And then if you can find it, there's not a line yet. Part of the reason I like Indiana still to be comfortable and get this win, even though I'm not betting a side here, is I like them at home because they probably have a little bit more energy, a little more ability to push that pace. And Indiana relies on its depth. They obviously have a massive depth advantage right now with all the guys injured in Milwaukee. And I'm looking for a spot to play Pacers role players here because they've been showing up at home in the series. I looked at Ben Shepherd. He's getting some confidence. Here's the guy you want. When you get a line, give me an Obi Toppin points over. He has scored this series on the road 8.3 points a game, at home 14 points a game. His line in game 4 was 8.5. So he's gone over that line 4 to 5 anyway, but at home, 13 and 15 points. He's gone well clear of that one. So that to me would be my top prop here is Obi Toppin just getting a few easy second unit buckets against Danilo Gallinari and against Jay Crowder and Pat Connaughton and like whoever they can drum up off of the end of the roster. Somebody has to be able to get advantage of that. And I think just some energy at home from Obi. Back to our Knicks, an old Knick here to close us out. Obi points over once you can find it. 8.5. Even if you get a 9.5, I'm fine with that.
I love it. All right, to recap, AOW's on the under in Knicks Sixers under 200.5 and Knicks plus 3.5. BA in Knicks Sixers. Knicks second quarter money line, even money Sixers. First quarter parlayed with Knicks money line at plus 460. Quick note there. If you had been parlaying Lakers first half, Nuggets to win game, you would have been making a lot of money. So like that's a perfect example of sniping a situation and trying to get that that built-in game flow escalator that BA was laying out. And then in game 2, BA is gonna go ahead.
No, I was gonna say shout out to our guy Maltman who was on the down Nuggets to be down 10 and win the game at like plus 500 every game. Sniped it in, I think, in every single game, if I'm not mistaken. Maybe not
at NBA first 3. He hit that one like 3 times in that series. A very good play. So that's a good shout.
Yeah. Game 2 for BA. Pacers, stage of elimination second round. So they go on to win the series against the Bucks, but then lose in the second round to either the Knicks or the Philadelphia 76ers. Then Pascal Siakam, PRA, under 35.5 in the next game coming up here. And then Obi Toppin points over when it's released. Keep an eye on that number when it hits the board. And then I am on the Sixers team total over 101.5 minus 110. For Brandon Anderson, BA, for Andrew O'Connor Watts, AOW, I am your host, Sean Little. Shout out our guy, David Payne, for listening and doing the edit for us. Remember, we are presented by BetMGM, the king of sportsbooks. Remember, go download the Action Network app. The amount of content we are putting out surrounding the playoffs, for the NBA and the NHL and MLB rolling. It's unbelievable. Remember, subscribe to the new WNBA Buckets podcast. First episode is coming up here this Friday, May 3rd. Go subscribe to that. It's a relatively untapped market. Maria Marino is going to be running point there. She's going to be bringing on a ton of other Action Network hoop heads that will find some winners for you. Until next time, let's get buckets, baby. We'll see y'all.